Hey guys, what's going on? Paul here. Welcome back to another Cardano video. And today I'm joined by three guests working on different projects, but there's a lot of collaboration going on and a lot going on between the three projects as well. So I'm going to let the guests introduce themselves. We're going to cover a lot of different topics and some use cases for what they're talking about too. So Hinson, do you want to kick us off with an introduction to yourself, and then we'll get into the projects that each of you are working on then?
Yep. So I'm Hinson. I'm the co-founder of DeltaDeFi, which is another desk for Cardano, where we are solving a very unique problem for the ecosystem, which is their zero order placing fee, zero order cancellation fee, and also we could provide instant order confirmation. I mean, these are quite some of the features that some of the traditional trader would love to have, or is actually just a basic for a lot of quant trader to trade on, for example, Binance or any of the centralized exchanges that you can name. And we also provide some programmatic access, just exactly the same way that you're interactive with Binance and interactive brokers. So we hope to really onboard some of the traditional traders onto Cardano and with the Cardano tech. So in the community, I also have another role, which is also one of the partners in SIDAN Labs, where we also build with Mesh JS and also host a Cardano Hong Kong community with Waffle Capital as well. But my focus is mostly on this project, DeltaDeFi. So today I just want to give a kind of warm intro into the community about what we are building, rather than just me building it all days long, but no one's knowing. Yeah, so very happy to be here, and thanks for the invitation, Paul.
Great, yeah. We'll dive into that in a few minutes in what the DEX is. I know people will hear another DEX on Cardano, but there is a bit of a difference in what you guys are building. Jingles, you want to go next and introduce yourself and what you're working on?
Hey, hi guys. I'm Jingles, and I'm creator of Mesh JS. Mesh JS is the SDK or software developer kit for building on Cardano applications. It's supposed to be easy to use, and we provide all the high-level endpoints as well as the low-level endpoints. So you are like pretty deep into the technical, you want to customize, there is also the toolings provided, but you are like the first time coming to Cardano, trying how to build stuff, there's also the high-level component that you can play with. And also while doing so, partnering with like DeltaDeFi or more like SIDAN Lab, and also working on the DeFi project, which is with Sebastien, we are making use cases happening. On one side is also we are onboarding lots of developers, working closely with the Kimber Labs and the Amil team. So yeah, in general, building developers, onboarding developers, and so building use cases for commercial use cases. Thanks.
Okay, that's good. Good to hear. The easier we can make it for developers to get involved in Cardano, the better. And that's definitely something I've noticed over the last year, is how much easier it has started to get for developers with SDKs like that, and with tools out there where you can spin up infrastructure pretty quickly now without having to go too deep down into it yourself. So you can really start to prototype fairly quickly or start to test the waters. Sebastien, do you want to give an introduction to yourself and a bit about what you're working on? And then we'll dive deeper into all of the different aspects after that.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm Sebastien. I'm the founder and the CEO of DeFi, which is a RealFi ecosystem that tries to address all the challenges of financial inclusion by building on Cardano and bringing some new technology in the Web3, such as DK or MPC. The main challenge that we face for financial inclusion actually is the problem of identity and financial data. They are fragmented across different servers. So we try to bring them all together into an infrastructure. So we build an infrastructure for what we call a circular financial identity that gives the power to individuals to share the data with confidentially and privacy, and increasing the privacy thanks to ZK technology and MPC technology with a financial institution, in order for them to be able to process the transaction safely and in regard to the regulatory requirement they face.
Okay, great. And actually, you forgot to mention at the start, each of you all have Catalyst proposals, which I will link down below, and they might make more sense for people as we go through the aspects that we're going through here. So, Hinson, I'll come back to you on DeltaDeFi and another Cardano DEX. Why is this one different, or what sets you apart?
Yeah. So actually, we are solving the three problems that I just mentioned very earlier in the interview. And I think these are some of the questions that, or the problems that there's no existing DEXs across multiple ecosystems is trying to solve. Because we talk about a little bit on the history, on the very early days about blockchain technology. A lot of people are very excited about 100% decentralization, where you really own your money and you own the processes, so that different DEX and DeFi, they could just connect to each other automatically. Every process is just processed, proceeded by the nodes in different blockchains, no matter it's Ethereum or Cardano's. So this is something that the early adopters of blockchains are really excited for. But we now turn into another point, as this is, in our opinions, as that it's time for us to really facing the kind of a broader markets. In terms of the broader market, because our team are based Hong Kong, we are kind of talking to or interacting with some traditional players or trader on a daily basis. Just each of us, of our co-founders, we have a lot of friends that are working in the banking industry, hedge funds, where they're really trading the old money on a daily basis. When I talked to them one day about do they use DeFi to trade, or do they just trade crypto? Most of them just answer me, they're just trading inside Binance or OKX, those centralized exchanges, and they probably never look into decentralized exchanges. So I asked a little bit deeper, is it about product? Like, because we all know that we are still early in DeFi, there's not much derivative out there. We cannot have the identical products in terms of financial exposure in DeFi. But they say, no, that's not even the problem they're facing yet. Like right before they face this kind of product completeness, they're actually having some problem with trading. Because we all know that placing a swap orders in Ethereum will cost you a couple dollars already. No matter, just let alone there's some opportunity that you will just regret for your trade. And it's kind of common in traditional trading. Like you place an order for example, ADA's buying order for 50 cents, and another day you find it's 40, then you want to cancel your order. But in DeFi setting, it will charge you gas fee twice. But we call transaction fee in Cardano twice. And this cost, no matter how cheap is somewhat intolerable from traditional traders. Just imagine they're running that box, placing thousands of orders each second, and they want to cancel perhaps 900 something per second. It will already cost them a lot of money, no matter it's just a few cents in terms of the transaction fees. So this is where DeltaDeFi come for, is we introduce a somewhat centralized processes for tradings. Like we indeed centralize a lot of process, but what we do not sacrifice is about the custodian. Like users still 100% own their money. Users still have to cite their message for trading each tokens for as a certain price. Users still signing their permission for each order type. These are the things that we do not sacrifice, but we do centralize, or we own some of the processes, which solve a lot of very old problem in Cardano, like UTXO contention, like a lot of different things. So the end result is place an order in DeltaDeFi does not cost any money. Cancel order either. And then the good thing is we also have instant confirmation on the order. No matter how many seconds it takes the blockchain to confirm your transaction, we have a extremely high confidence to give the feedback to the users at the time they are signing the transaction or hitting our APIs. So this is something that we've built for the traditional traders, where they could just massively trade on Cardano's and perhaps just bridging some of the centralized liquidity into Cardano ecosystem. I might do a demo later, but try not to take too much time right now.
Yeah, so my understanding on it then is, when you talk about there's no fees for placing an order or anything like that, me as a user, I want to get involved. I deposit my funds into a smart contract. So that's how I essentially, I put it out of my wallet, but I'm the only one can take it out of the smart contract, or I'm the only one can sign a transaction. So when I'm placing a trade then on your DEX, I sign a transaction through my wallet. Is it that I'm happy to execute that trade if it hits certain prices, but because that doesn't hit the chain or get executed, that's why I don't pay the fee. So if it never goes there, the transaction just never actually happens, is it?
Yep, exactly. Indeed, there's not much rocket science behind the scene, but we are really optimizing for the user experience. Like you're still signing for the exact transaction you are putting onto a smart contract, but we are just kind of have the control into whether to submit it onto the blockchain or not. Like if you never hit the price, we never submitting it. And if there's another market participant to fill your limit order, we just submit it together using transaction chaining so that everything is instant. And then in the script itself is actually never having any value sitting in that at any time. It's just like a state channels, like one order in, one order out directly. This is what kind of, some more of the details of how we accomplish it.
Okay, and then just you mentioned about centralized elements of some of the, I suppose, the processes around this. Will anybody else be able to verify that you guys are executing, you're not letting account X front run someone else, or will all of that be, I suppose, on public because it's not directly going on chain? How can people verify it?
Yeah, this is a very, very good question. We indeed, actually from over half of our co-founders in DeltaDeFi, we work in a financial institution or a bank before. We're pretty much very kind of understand the how it works in the traditional markets. So we indeed migrate this kind of or copy or take reference to some of the kind of traditional intelligence into building our kind of governance model. Is that we will store a kind of full lot of user actions. Like every one of our users, or just literally everyone, can just pull up the kind of market trading loss anytime. But we will for sure try to mask some of the PII informations so that there is no kind of traders identity leakage, this kind of thing. But everyone could just take a look into that log, and they could just try to recompile or recalculate the order book status themselves. So they could understand according to our kind of priority rules, which we are using a very simple one, price time priority. We're always giving the best price order for you first. And then if there is the same price, we will give the one that first in, first out. Like the first one placed, and we will pop the first one for you. And everyone could just reconcile whether we have the correct order choice for you just by checking into those status. And we are having some of the mechanism in place so that this user log is kind of immutable. Like we cannot just change this log anytime we want. It might be somewhere put inside IPFS with some hashes, this kind of security things. But everyone could have a high confidence that we didn't amend the log, and everyone is just recalculate the whole thing. And if there's an occasion that our team take advantage in the centralized processes, everyone is just check it very easily that we have played some trick in between. And there's some sort of the soft limit imposing to us, like we didn't get a chance to do anything secretly without kind of, user noticing it.
Yeah, that's good. Good to hear. And actually, I suppose just if we finish up on DeltaDeFi, do you want to show your demo now? And then I'm going to move around and talk about the other projects then.
Yeah, sure. So this is our, indeed, DeltaDeFi, we have launched our alpha testing with some of the invited users, and we've tested a lot of things and getting a lot of breaking kind of bugs. But here, this is a relatively stable version. So you can see we right now just try to have a very minimal kind of interface. What you can see here is you firstly, if you want to use DeltaDeFi, you have to deposit your money into the app, which is a smart contract where we cannot spend it indeed. So after you have depositing your money, there's the order book, and we are having a mock trading pair here, either to a mock stablecoin. And then there's the order book here, and we have market order, limit order. So the first thing I could just try out is I try to place a limit order, for example. Like buy order, perhaps I want to have a very aggressive buy order at 50 cents. I just sign it. So for this transaction you're signing is indeed spending out of your kind of account smart contract and then just spend it into the kind of desk smart contract, including some of the fees to be paid. And after placing this order, you can see it's immediately confirmed and the order is live on the order book. And you see there's an active order here, but this process do not charge your account any fees because the transaction is not on chain. Indeed, we photo it in our kind of servers. So when you want to cancel your orders, it's instant and without a fee. And these two actions could be kind of carried out by kind of the programmatic trading. So firstly, we're supporting TypeScript using Mesh JS infrastructure. So we make this signing thing very easy. But yeah, for this is kind of the core demos. And another demo I could do is on the market orders. For example, here I want to sell for a market orders, try to set the maximum slippage larger such that it hits. So you try to build one orders in here. What you can see is firstly, there's a first transaction showing to the user like which order you're exactly matching. And then you cite in another transaction. This is the one that unlocking from your smart contract take some of the money from the smart contract and then execute the trade. So we cite these two together. You see immediately the order book move it. Like there's one order taken, and yeah, indeed it's already filled. This is not something that I want to demo. Indeed, there's a settling kind of status, but it's filled immediately because we want to wait for the blockchain to confirm. But yeah, but this thing happened kind of instantly. So there's something that we built for our user.
Okay, and then when that order executes, the funds don't come back to my wallet. They sit in the contract until I actually withdraw them out to my wallet then, is it?
Yep, exactly. You can just withdraw it anytime you want.
Okay.
And indeed, this process could be just carried out by the users. Like it could be carried out without any of our permission, but it could also carry out with our permission. But because of some of the very technical details, we don't want the users to withdraw themselves because it will kind of somewhat causing the UTXO kind of crashing issues. But we have some mechanism in place, just as every user still could withdraw their money with their own keys solely. Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned you're using Mesh JS there as well for part of the building. Jingles, do you want to expand a bit more on the intro you've done to Mesh and some of the projects like this that you will be working on too?
Yeah, I like the way Hinson say about like focusing on the user experience, and indeed Mesh is also focusing on that, but from a developer point of view, like you want to provide tools that is easy to understand. There's website. Once upon a time, it was like pretty known that Cardano lack of documentation. Everyone's complaining how hard it is to build, and it's simply because there isn't open source tooling that is like working. There isn't documentation that you can play with. So on the Mesh website, you can see that meshjs.dev, most of our endpoints, in fact, you can connect your wallet and really test it out even before writing a single piece of code. So we want to allow like even non-developers to understand, oh, send Lovelace, this is how the code looks like in a very short piece of snippet, and they can even try it on the website. So focusing on developer experience and also from learners' perspective is a great educational tool because all these examples are all live and people can play with it. So just want to highlight on one recent thing that we created together with Hinson is the smart contract library that is on the screen right now. Here you can see like we have launched 6 smart contracts and anyone can try it out. For example, why not vesting, right? So vesting, you do not know how to write smart contract, let's say, doesn't matter. Here are all the piece of code that you need to copy, just a few lines. And to call the function, to create the transactions, it's just this piece of code. Contract.deposit fund, deposit what fund, send to who, you know, it's not too much. There isn't any smart contract or whatever. So this is a very good starting point for as a developer, like your non-Cardano developer. You can start from a TypeScript or JavaScript to understand, oh, okay, this is how real transaction, this is how you talk to the smart contract, and you want to withdraw from the vestings. It's just 4 lines of code, 4 lines. And when you are ready, you want to understand how to go into writing smart contract, or some people will prefer how to write off-chain transactions. They can go to our repository to look at how the Aiken workspace looks like, all the vesting codes and all the off-chain codes are also living inside here. So I think this is a wonderful piece of educational materials and focusing on onboarding developers and providing a good experience. So pretty happy about this. Yeah.
Great. And you guys are looking into something else that I've got very interested in lately is layer 2s. And
that's right.
A bit different. And I think this will lead us into Sebastien, because what he's working on is a very good use case for this. But do you want to give the high level of what you guys are doing? I will say on layer 2s, I have another interview on the channel with Phil and George where we talked in depth about sidechains, layer 2s, pros, cons. Definitely check that one out if you're new to this. But in terms of what you guys are doing, do you want to give the high level of that?
Yeah. So from a tooling point of view, why we want to build on layer 2s or sidechain is for adoption and for usability, right? Providing a user focus on how application can serve the need. So for Hinson example here, no fees, people don't want to pay fees. And also people want to be fast, they don't want to wait for like blockchain confirmation. They don't want to pay a lot of fees. So these are a few examples of why blockchain, private blockchain or sidechain or L2s can really serve the purpose. And we are building all the toolings. For example, Mesh version 2 is pure TypeScript, working closely with IOG engineers to provide the good experience, to provide the toolings to write off-chain codes to deploy for private blockchain, to talk to private blockchain. And also working very closely with Cardano Foundation engineers on the private blockchain itself. They have some working instances that we can play with already. So from a product level, so thinking from mesh toolings, thinking from a DeFi commercial use case perspective, how can we shape the roadmap of private blockchain or L2s or sidechain? So this is where we are working closely with, even outside of this group of us, with IOG, with CF, to shape how this L2 is going to be like in the near future. And the purpose is also, just to reiterate, is for user experience, for adopting of users onto using Cardano for good use case. Yeah.
Okay, and when you say it's a private layer 2, does that mean that all the transactions on it are private? Is it something similar? We see IOG are working on Midnight. Is it something? I know that's not a layer 2; it's partner chain. But is it something similar to that where you can have private transactions, or how does the privacy work?
Yeah, so privacy is it can be designed in many ways, right? So for DeFi use case, because it's financial focus, yes, we hash every information so that it is privacy focused. And this is where our partnership with ZK4 is happening as well, where the hash of the value is being used to create the ZK proof circuits, so that on-chain verification of proving if this person is of a certain demographic is true without revealing the actual information. Again, private blockchain doesn't need to be private for private use case only. It can be public L2s, such that anyone can participate in the ecosystem as well. So we are building the tools to facilitate adoption of use cases and to adoption of users onboarding Cardano technology.
Okay, so this will be for individual entities to come in and use the tooling to spin up their own layer 2, is it? It wouldn't be one where you have multiple dApps all using it.
Yeah, we are creating the toolings as well as one example where this is where for the commercial RealFi with DeFi company, providing the KYC and the AML solution to provide a cross-border payment solution where privacy is very important in the core of the product.
Okay, and the security of this, where does that come from, the layer 1, or are you using rollups, or how does it connect back to Cardano?
Yeah, maybe I could add a bit points from here. Like in this kind of private L2 R&D is kind of carried out or initiated by me and Jingles together. So there's two parts. The first part is about everything test that is on Cardano. So why is it important? Like even developers like me or Jingles, when we want to move to Midnight, we still have to take some time to learn about any of the new infrastructure and everything. So the first thing about the kind of private L2 is everything works on Cardano mainnet. If it works on the private L2s that you're trying to spin up. And the second part is about the connectivity into Cardano. So apart from just forking the Cardano out as a standalone blockchain, so what kind of connection that I could have back to the mainnet is that we try to, we have also carry out some of the research, but in simple terms, we have kind of favoring one kind of architecture that we could rely a little bit on the Cardano L1 security to make some guarantee onto L2. Is having a kind of a interval snapshot hashing putting back into the Cardano L1 just somewhere. Just you could imagine it could be just a kind of very simple smart contract, or it could be just a user wallet. Because once a transaction is sent there, the data, everything is just there permanently. Like no one could just change it. So as long as we are retaining a lot, no matter it's once per day or 24th time per day, just once per hour, people are just looking into the data history on your blockchain. So when I try to attempt tampering our kind of private blockchain anytime in the maybe the futures, like changing some of the history of it, everyone could just notice that immediately by kind of try to recalculating the hashes back to the kind of L1 security. So this design is very simple. We just built on the one kind of premise is that Cardano L1 is secure enough to make us to have the confidence that the data on it is never changing. So it's a pretty simple mechanism, and there's a kind of lightweight connection where in this kind of, we call it Cardano Surface Layer Framework indeed in our Catalyst proposal. We try not to be building a very heavy bridging across the two chain, because the problem with it is that unless you have some crazily smart engineers in a team, like hundreds of it, researching the mechanism, there's a kind of pretty good chance that it could be hacked one day if the total value load reaching certain amounts. So we just try to keep the connectivity a little bit lightweighted. Still, we can rely on the Cardano L1 security to tell our users that data on the private L2 is always immutable.
Okay, so is it somewhat similar to a sidechain then, in that it's using the same tech stack as Cardano, maybe even more towards sidechain than a layer 2?
Yeah, it's more towards sidechain. It's kind of sidechain L2s as well. And according to like what Hinson has said, exactly this is where the compliance, because when we talk about RealFi, this is where the regulatory compliance, how the central banks and different regulatory bodies are thinking, you need to give them the security that these things cannot be tampered with. You can't do funny business to KYC information. You can't sneak in transactions and delete them or hide them somewhere. So using the mainnet to hash on a periodic basis, this allows audits to come in to guarantee that at any point in time in the history of our sidechain, it can be verified on L1s that this is still true. The actions that take place in this business is all recorded accordingly. So I think this is definitely one interesting point from the product or from a use case perspective of how real world usage can be. And I think Sebastien definitely have a lot to say about compliance, product, go-to-market of how this technology can be useful.
Yeah, I could kind of go on and love to learn more on that. Maybe we'll do that another day. But on to use cases then. And Sebastien, what you guys are doing is a prime use case for these types of layer 2 sidechains. So do you want to expand a bit more on what you're doing in RealFi and with KYC and the financial inclusion?
Yeah, sure. When I talk, I just want to emphasize that when I talk about financial inclusion, I'm not talking about low-income community in an emerging country, but it can be also digital nomads, digital creators, micro and nano entrepreneurs. It can be also like workers of decentralized organizations that are paid with token, they all face challenges, financial challenges, because of their situation, because some regulatory constraint. So the idea is to provide a solution for them. The private or the side chain is important for that. The first thing, when we talk about these communities, fees are very important. So if you want to do financial inclusion, especially for the low-income community, the fees has to be very low. If the fees are high, and you can't onboard them because they have a very low income, so they won't be able to pay the fees that are usually used by the mainnet. So having a side chain is critical for that. The main reason that the financial inclusion is still a hot topic and very hard to solve, as I was explaining at the beginning, is because there is an issue about identity data, but also financial data. It's very hard today to provide. There's still, for instance, in Southeast Asia, you still have 70% of the population that are under-documented. They don't have enough documentation to provide to financial services to get access to finance. That's one of the main issues that happen in there. So we can't build a risk score. We can't build, some financial identity. So the idea that we want to bring is how we can help those guys to build their financial identity over time. And their financial identity is actually spread across different domains. It can be spending, saving, investing, donating. So it's not only like a one-second thing. It's not only about a risk scoring. It's really a financial identity is diverse, and that financial identity is spread over the net. So the idea is to bring how we can help those guys to bring all together those information into one central application, and then they have the control over it to share it with different financial institutions. And then when they share those information over time, the information goes to they onboard in a financial institution. When they're on board, they start to transact. So they are building their financial identity over time. So even with a very small, little documentation, you just need to onboard in one organization, and then over time you can build your financial identity and bring more and go into more access to more advanced financial services. So that's why we call about the circular financial identity, is that the more you transact, the more you build your financial identity, the more you generate financial data that you can reuse to have access to more advanced and more sophisticated financial services. So that's the core concept. The issue that we have is like today, bank and financial services, they are really like, they have a mandate of fighting financial crimes. And to fight financial crime, what you need, it's actually data. You need identity data. You need to know who is the person. You need to know what the transaction is about. So a lot of data are actually like are shared between all the intermediaries. If I take an example of cross-border payment, if you want to pay from Singapore dollars to US dollars, you probably have like a several bank in between. And each of them need to have those information to perform the KYC and the AML activities. That means a lot of information is traveling between all of this along the supply chain of the financial transaction. And every time you increase the risk of data leak, the misuse of your data. So that's one of the critical points we want to tackle, is like how we can help all of these guys to collaborate and do the collective KYC together. So what we call a decentralized KYC. It's not everyone is doing this KYC, it's everyone is collaborating with a piece of data, the piece of information that they have to ensure that the transaction is legitimate. The other reason, which is having a private blockchain is important, is maybe the primary reason, is that there is more and more emphasis about data privacy. So it's kind of like paradoxical, because on one sense I need data to fight financial crime, which means transparency. But on the other hand, I need also to ensure data privacy. And therefore, I cannot share those data with the other individual. So having a private blockchain using technologies like a ZK or MPC enables to do the work to create some kind of like a regulatory framework around the transaction, and do your risk assessment, do your AML, do your KYC without revealing all the data. And all the data are actually still controlled by the by the individual. So you can only do that with a private, the private blockchain or a side blockchain. And that's the thing that we try to solve for most, is to solve this issue of how all the financial institutions can collaborate around privacy and transparency, trying to balance both of them.
Okay, yeah, it's definitely an area that I think there's a lot of use cases in, and something we need to expand on, especially in around decentralized IDs and like KYC. Every time I'm asked KYC if it's joining an exchange or getting involved in something else, I'm always very wary of giving up my passport details and private information, because you see so many leaks online, and there should be something that I can do it in one place, and then I can sign a key or I can do something to prove that is, and the entities are able to take that as proof. They don't actually have to look at the data themselves. And the same for financial data, in that you don't want to, sometimes you have to prove your financial status for, I don't know, getting a loan or getting a mortgage or getting something else, or getting into certain things. But I shouldn't have to give every single last transaction to all of these different entities. If there is some way that with proofs that you can prove it, but without giving the data, that's definitely a huge use case for blockchain and for, I suppose, the type of thing you're trying to build here.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can do that with MPC, because the MPC is able to compute. So if you provide some rules, then all the financial services that are involved into the transaction, they can provide their rules. What is their risk appetite without it, and then the MPC is going to compute. And through ZK, you can see if the person that are involved, or the users that are involved in the transaction, are legitimate and actually match the risk appetite of all the financial services involved into the transaction.
Mm-hmm. I suppose thinking about cryptocurrency exchanges should be ones that should look at pioneering something like this, because most people come in and they end up getting involved in multiple different centralized exchanges over time. But if there was one entity that you could do your KYC with, and then give each of these a key or whatever it is to prove, without having to hand over your personal data to all of the exchanges, I think that would really be a good way to prove, even outside of crypto, use cases for it. And they should be entities that should be open to things like this. But just on what you guys are building, what stage is it at now, or are there products in the works for it?
Today, for what we're doing, the prototypes are done, so now we are starting the development of the product. So we see that all the different pieces are working together. That was the first job that we did, and now we are starting to developing the product. So we're collaborating with regulators. One of the key things also is you can't do it without the regulators, especially when you talk about financial inclusion. Yeah, it's great, DeFi is fantastic, but the first thing that those guys need is to do payment. That's the first thing that they need. So you still need to collaborate with regulators. You still need to collaborate with big banks. You still need to have access to local payment rails. That's why we do RealFi. We hybrid both of them. I don't believe that you look at the history of innovation, nothing is changing completely. It's always an hybridization of what exists and what is new. So we collaborate with the regulators and big banks. We want to enter into the sandbox, regulatory sandbox with them in order to test with real data. So we are now negotiating some contract. Takes time. It's still the regulator. That's the main issue. Is they are willing to listen and try to explore new technology, but the process of decision making really takes time. So now we are talking with the 3 regulators. So it should happen normally around October, November this year.
Okay, great. To close out the call, I'll just go back around the table again for closing thoughts and on your Catalyst proposals. If you want to give a very quick summary of what it is, and I can leave links down below. Sebastien, we'll finish out with you.
Yeah, so should I start first? In SIDAN Lab, we have 4 proposals that driven by us. We have 2 as on DeltaDeFi. So indeed, a little bit of the background. DeltaDeFi start with Fund 11. Indeed, we come with an idea to try to onboard the high frequency traders onto Cardano. And now the concept is kind of proof, and we are trying to submit another proposal to support us to build the kind of the mainnet dApp for the Cardano communities. So there's the first one, and the second one is about the open source tooling things around DeltaDeFi. So because we are trying to build the trading bots and programmatic access, so a lot of the wallet signing infrastructure things that we also have to build out in, or try to connect different resources inside Cardano ecosystem, in different languages. So we have Mesh JS for TypeScript, and we have the Mesh JS dependency, which we have built out in Rust. But for other languages, there's still some gaps. For example, Python, I'm sure something out there. And for example, Golang and other languages as well. So the second proposal for DeltaDeFi is try to build this kind of wallet infrastructure to enable kind of API trading. It is one of the example use case for DeltaDeFi, or perhaps in a broader kind of sense, it's also helpful for other dApps as well. So this is the second proposal. And for the two other proposals in SIDAN Lab, we are collaborating with Jingles to indeed try to bring something out of Mesh. So the first one is kind of try to perfecting the Rust SDK. Is indeed the same kind of user or developer experience than the Mesh JS TypeScript version, but it's in Rust. So it's something that we are building. The second thing, I think Jingles could just elaborate more, is about the Cardano surface layer, which is a private L2 things that we just all discussed about.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see for Mesh side, there's 4 proposals, and the key one that I want to focus on is what we've been talking about, the Cardano service layer. This is the tooling that is used for DeFi as well. The tooling to talk to the private blockchain, and also working with Cardano foundations and IOG's engineers to create the toolings required for these things to get things working, right? So here are all our proposals. So do check it out.
Great. And Sebastien?
So we have like three proposals with DeFi. The first one is we are leading on the private blockchain or side blockchain. So that's the first one. We have discussed enough. I'm not going to elaborate more on it. The second one is in partnership with ZK. So this is why we try to bring ZK technology to verify the data without actually verifying revealing the data. For that will be used for cross-border payment, which is critical for sharing the information about ensuring that the information that you have access are verified and correspond to your risk appetite. The other one is a smart wallet, an MPC virtual signer, in order to create an harmonized regulatory framework between all the financial institutions involved, in order to be sure that the transaction between the different parties is going to happen and it will not be rejected. The idea is that you have different financial services collaborating to make a transaction. They have all a different risk appetite. This is actually kind of like trade secret. They don't want to share that. So when you do a transaction, usually it can fail because one of the financial institution, which is part of the supply chain, going to reject the transaction. So it can be very costly, for instance, when you do a cross-border payment, because you have to do an FX, and then the money is rejecting, so you take an FX back when it goes back to your bank account. So it can be very costly. So in order to do that, we want to create an harmonized regulatory framework between all the financial institutions before the transaction is going to be carried out by all of them. And for that, we use MPC technology, so we can compute all the risk appetite of every financial transaction, every financial service provider, sorry. And without revealing the data, and then to be sure it match all the parameters and ensure efficiency and actually that the transaction is done.
Great. Well, look, guys, thanks very much for your time today. I appreciate it. I learned lots about the individual projects and what's going on. Hopefully people watching did as well. Please do share it out. The links for all the proposals and the different sites and projects that the guys are involved in will be in the description below. Share it out, give it a like, leave questions, and thanks for watching. Subscribe if you're new. I'll talk to you soon. Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.